Welcome back to Roaming with Restless Women. Today I have Teehan with me. Anne is an executive and she works with executives, aspiring executives, and leaders at all levels to help turn their visions into reality. Those aspirations may include their own leadership and impact their team's capability or their organization's desired future. She partners with clients to move their visions from if to how to done through consulting, program management, and coaching for executives, leaders, and teams. She's the creator of Cadence, a systematic approach where professional development meets today's demands while intentionally building the future. I am so happy to have you here, Anne. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm thrilled to be with you, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate your being here, like I said. I was talking to you earlier about the reason for the podcast, and I know that you've been in business for quite a while. So why don't you tell me about your early career and how it was that you wound up in executive coaching and all the stuff that you do today?
All right. Well, I actually call myself the accidental coach sometimes, or at least I used to, because I never had a plan for anything. I'm an MBA. I have an undergrad in business. I have a master's in business. And even when I started my business 20 something years ago now, I didn't have a plan. So, not necessarily something I would advocate, but it's wound up well. So all that's to say, I really had no clue. And I know one of your passions is, helping women who are coming behind us. So maybe my story will help them a little bit. Excuse me, it's allergy season here in DC. Um, so I really had no idea. I didn't know if I was going to go to college. I thought you got a job, you got married, you had kids. That was what life expected of you, right? So I just kind of tripped my way through. And I did every kind of job from opening retail stores to working in a bowling alley to doing makeup and skincare. And I will tell you that I fell into coaching in 2000 because by then I had worked my way through college, worked my way through getting an MBA, and I was burning out. I was putting in a large IT system for Discovery Channel. We were putting in SAP globally, so for 13 countries in less than 3 years. And I was traveling the world. And despite all my business education, I was not a good leader. And I was burning out and I was stressed. And I went looking for a way to be a better leader. And I'll spare you all the details, but literally it was a fluke. I took an assessment. I was like, I like that assessment. I took my vacation time, went to Houston to be certified in that assessment. And this is in the summer of 2000. And the guy who did my debrief in the class said, "You'd make a great coach." I said, "What's a coach?" He sent me a link. I looked at the various links. I'm like, I'm not going to California. One link led to another, and I found the Georgetown University link to apply for their first cohort. The application deadline was the next day. I was waitlisted. 2 or 3 days later, I was in. A month later, I was in Georgetown learning to be a coach to try to be a better leader. My head was spun around. And by the end of the program, 6 months later, I was like, oh, this just made sense of my whole career that had made no sense at all. It was so that I could meet all kinds of different people and understand them and work with them. Because at 23, when I was doing makeup and working my way through college, somewhere out of the blue, I said to myself, I want to help organizations and the people in them to be better. There was nothing in my life that where that would have ever come from. And so in 2001, I was like, oh, this is what does that. And that's how I landed here.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. If you don't mind my asking, what coaching assessment did you use?
So it's one that not a lot of people have heard of. It's called the Berkman. Um,
Oh no, I knew the Berkman.
yeah, so it made a lot of sense. And I'm big into the leadership
Yeah.
circle now, which you've probably heard about. But yeah, that was the Berkman because basically that was about recognizing your stress behaviors and
Yeah.
how to use that information to keep you out of stress mode so you can show up as your best self.
Wow. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about why you thought you were not a good leader.
I was working 24/7, which, I was in the IT field, accidentally again, in the IT field, a woman in the IT field. And I had four or five fantastic bosses in a row, men and women. Um, But, this is the 90s. You were expected to work 24/7. I know that people in that field still are. Um, and so my ugly side was coming out. I didn't, all of the business education doesn't prepare you for someone crying across the desk from you or figuring out how to set any kind of a boundary in your life, or just navigating office politics, all of those kinds of things. So I was impatient with people. I expected people to be able to work at the pace I was willing to work at to produce the kind of results that I was convinced I was producing. Hindsight being 2020. How great was I? I don't know, but um, I'm still friends with my boss from 20 something years ago, and so we still believe our own PR. But yeah, I wasn't showing up well. I wasn't a nice person um, under pressure. When I don't like this phrase, but I was told I was intimidating, which I will only own part of that. I feel like people have to own their own reaction, but all those kinds of ugly things were coming out under pressure, under those kinds of deadlines, under that kind of stress.
Well, I'm sorry, but I grew up in the same era as you did, right? And in the 90s, we were told we had to work and be like the boys.
Yeah.
And that meant we had to stand up for ourselves. And our assertiveness often was misinterpreted as aggressiveness. And
Hmm.
it was aggressive sometimes
Yeah.
because it had to be. So I give us a lot of slack for growing up in a period where the expectations and the reality were two different things,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Even to how we dressed. Remember,
Oh,
thought had to go into how you dressed and how limited the options were, and you really had to be watching yourself all the time, and there was no real way to win, you know?
no, no way at all. That's for sure. Well, and I grew up in the banking sector. So in the 90s, I was fully into, rolling out a big CRM in a bank. I was an internal employee, and we were expected to wear skirts, suits, pantyhose, the whole enchilada. We were not allowed to wear slacks. And that was only what, 30 years ago, 40
Yeah.
years ago. So it times have changed quite a bit. Here I am sitting, at work in my home in a t-shirt. So I'm loving life now.
I know. I mean, I joke that I didn't go out of the house without makeup on until I was 35, and that was a major thought. And like something
Oh
had to go
yeah.
wrong for me that I did that. I mean, yes, I know. I'm in stretchy pants and a decent top. I mean, that's the uniform now, right? But
That's
it's
right.
of my mind that early conditioning. And one of the women I worked with who was older, she was like, nope, I get up every day and put on my suit. That's my armor. That means it's time to go to work. And there is still that kind of indoctrination of this is what you wear to work, this is what you do, this is how you get into the mindset and show up.
That's for sure. And sometimes I feel guilty for not getting fully outfitted every day.
Yep.
And then by the same token, I'm so much more comfortable and I am so much more productive when I'm comfortable. And I think to myself, gee, if we just allowed ourselves to be who we are, without all of the judgment and all of that stuff, how much more productive we could all be, you know? Yeah, for sure. Well, tell me about what you do now and some of the challenges that you faced recently in working with executives.
Okay. So, I started my business in 2005, and you know what it's like being in business. It's different pretty much every year, definitely every 5 years. It's a reinvention. I thought the big reinvention was after COVID, but I feel like now is almost like a COVID-2 kind of situation in terms of just the next level of changing things. Um, so what I'm finding is, I was able to miss a lot of the generational stuff, being out on my own, being in the coaching bubble, coaching, consulting, parachuting in, parachuting back out, right? It's really coming to the forefront. And so I was delivering a project management class. That's kind of my thing. It's like in my DNA. I learned it by accidents, nature, nurture, I can do it in my sleep. Um, but the conversations are different now. What the participants were taking away from the project management training. I approach it from a mindset standpoint, but there's struggles with being in organizations. Um, you know, because we came up in the same generation, you probably know this. We were expected to sit around the side of the room, keep your mouth shut, pay attention, and then when you got the floor, you did what you had seen successful people do, right? That's not the case now. And when I use that kind of an example, um, it completely doesn't compute. They're expecting at 22 and 25 to hold the floor, to tell their boomer and Gen X bosses what's right and what should be done now for generations. And so I'm finding that in my work to find the good, because a lot of what this younger generation is thinking is right. It's just that we didn't have any of the boundaries, we didn't have any of the balance, and we didn't expect to. They expect to. So that's one of the bigger challenges. And right now, how it's showing up, I'm working with a client organization and they don't want anything longer than an hour. They don't want, maybe an hour and a half. It's a good thing. It stretches
Yeah,
me.
and that's
Re-
stretching it an hour and a half, you
Yeah.
know.
But, how to get into conversations and how to add value. And there just isn't the same shared perspective, which again is a good thing, but it makes you stop and rethink. So after COVID, this had already started. Already we knew in my company we couldn't do more than 2 hours of things. Now it's to an hour, hour and a half max, right? But we were working with a federal agency and we were trying to help them go from an administrative culture to a business partner culture. And I was coaching the top team of the executives and working with the top executive. And I brought in 17 other coaches and consultants, and we were delivering training and coaching for this group. And every one of us had an expertise. Like one of my team members is great in Clifton Strengths, and one is great, she's great in emotional intelligence, one's great at communication. And we all thought we were just going to be able to bring our stuff, package it up a little bit and do it. And very quickly we hit a wall and said, no, basically we have to rethink everything. And it was a great exercise. So for me with project management,
Uh-huh.
a colleague and I built a whole curriculum on how do you actually train someone on consulting skills and how to think like a partner, not like a partner in a firm, but a partner working with someone. And we literally went to the point of stepping back and saying, what's our first meeting with a customer look like or a potential partner look like? What are we
Right.
thinking? What are we doing? And we went down to that level and then said, how is this going to translate for people so that we could meet different industries, different organizations, but also these different generations and truly teach what we had come to take for granted. So anyway, very long answers to your very short question. So am I at all on track with what you were looking for in that question?
Absolutely. And so you had to basically re-envision how the curriculum, the basics are still here, but how that curriculum translates into a more, shall we say, collaborative, multi-generational workforce.
Right. And the way that they could
Yeah,
absorb the information, but also
right.
not making assumptions about the rules you and I were taught, for example, or
Right.
having that baseline knowledge. In creative writing way back when they would say, write about how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? And that's kind of the approach we took, is looking at everything and then saying, all right, if you had to write how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how much detail would you have to have? And so we had to really make our own thought processes and beliefs visible and then say, huh, what do I still believe? What was I just carrying over? And now where I am, in the last year or so, because everything's changed again, I'm thinking, and this goes to your reason for your podcast, is what do I want to leave behind? How can I take 30, I'll just shave off a few, 30
Yeah.
years of experience, or right, and what I know, this experience of redoing the curriculum and rethinking everything, how can I leave that behind and help us to rebuild differently
Right.
going forward and let go of some of the stuff that didn't work, like the having to work 24/7.
100%. Wow. So what's next for you?
So everything's pretty turbulent, I'm in the DC area, so there's been a whole lot of change, right? So for me, it is staying close to this idea of what can people use now and what can I leave behind, and where do those two things intersect where I can actually make true value, or help create value with someone to carry them forward. So I'm trying to stay in the game now, but also keep an eye towards how do we build what's coming next in a positive way while keeping the good and letting go of the not so great.
Exactly. It's and it is hard. It is hard to let go of things that in the past really did work. But when the situation all around it has changed so dramatically, what worked before is probably not going to work, or it needs to be tweaked dramatically to make it work. That's for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
And particularly with AI coming in, with all of the turmoil around our world and politics, it the tension and the stress, going back to Berkman, is sometimes bringing out the worst in people as opposed to the best in people. And how can we make sure that it's not happening to us, number one, and then that we're not bleeding that off to our clients
Right.
and
Right.
creating for them even more stress, you know. So I have three questions that I ask at the end of at the end of every episode. If you've listened to some, you know what they are. But we're going to move into that section. The first question that I have, if you close your eyes and tell me what you see in your mind's eye when I say wise woman.
So I feel peace and I see ease, comfort in her own skin, and generous with those around her.
Generosity is a hallmark of wisdom. In my mind, that's what I think. That's great. Okay, so what makes you, oh, no, wait. Where do you like to roam, Anne?
Where do I like to roam? Well,
Yes.
one of the things that came up when I closed my eyes was that wise woman was on the beach, because I'm feeling the need to get down and get near the waves. That's the way I center. And I live outside DC on the way to the beach. So I want to go before everybody else goes. I just want to go down and get centered and get near the beach, get near the ocean.
I live right outside of Orlando, and this weekend my daughters and I are meeting at the beach over in the Clearwater area. So they're treating me to a day at the beach, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, for sure. And what makes you restless in a good way?
Ideas like working
Yes.
bright people. I do my best when I am the dumbest one at the table. So what I've just pictured, I'm trading emails with my former boss, who also helped me create that consulting class, and we're overdue for a conversation. And there's a couple of women that I talk with every week. So yeah, I get restless when there's something that we can create and kick around and make better than any individual, any one of us could do ourselves.
So, if you're well, and you are familiar with the Strengths Finder, you mentioned that. My number one strength is ideation. So you probably that, that is right there. I don't even care if it's a good idea. If it's an idea, I love to talk about it with people and brainstorm. That's where I shine. And like you said, when I'm the stupidest one in the room and I can ask a lot of crazy questions, usually the output is so much better than when I'm sitting alone.
Yeah. Yeah. The what if.
The what if,
What
right?
could we do? What could we make happen? Yeah.
Yeah. What if this wasn't a given? What if this wasn't a given?
Hmm.
What if that wasn't a rule? I love that kind of conversation. So,
Yeah.
how do people get a hold of you, Anne?
Well, isn't that the stumper question? So I do have a website, and I went with anneteehan.com because I figured I am my brand. So it's ANNETEEHAN.com. There's lots of ways through that website to find me, including direct email.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being part of the episode. I really appreciate it, part of the show. And people, please take a look at Anne's website, especially if you are in the business space and you need executive coaching or you need some executive leadership, just guidance. Anne's the right one to go for. So thank you, Anne. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Julie. Appreciate it.
Julie Noonan here. Thank you so much for listening to Roaming with Restless Women. If you're a successful senior woman leader who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.intuitivewisdomcoach.com. If you enjoyed this interview, please share this episode on social media and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Your thumbs ups and reviews go a long way.